And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Frank Tomino is our guest. Frank continues to write his history column at the Observer-Dispatch. He's an active member up at the United County History Center and is author of History Just for the Fun of It. Frank, you and I were talking about the pandemic, the cholera that hit Utica, but another big one that hit not only Utica but all over was the Spanish flu. What year was that?
Well, during World War I, 1917, 1918 and 19 were the worst years. I mean, it was, again, I wasn't able to do much research on this. The libraries closed and I couldn't get to the 1918, 19 papers. And at the OD, we have papers on microfilm, but we don't have 1918, 1919.
Just by chance that one's gone, Frank?
No, when I first started at the OD, the microfilm started 1921, and when Jack Marsh was executive editor, he wanted to expand on that. It's very costly, so they started microfilm. We got a few papers, the 1889, the 90s, 92, 93, and he was going to go all the way up to 1921. But then he got transferred, and the new executive editor wasn't too excited about microfilm.
Yeah, was that
so
Jenny
that's where it
Phipps?
stopped.
Was that Jenny Phipps?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So what you do, Frank, when there's a gap in the OD's microfilm, or when there is too early for the OD to have microfilm, you go up to the Utica Public Library.
Oh, the library, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's how you do the majority of your research?
Oh, yeah, when I did the series on mayors, thank God for the library. I mean, especially, you know, mayor, because they've got, they've got a few Utica observers and others in the 1840s, but then starting about during the Civil War, you got every edition. I mean, it's sometimes it's tough to read, so I'm always there with a magnifying glass, but thank God for the library. And
Whenever you
microfilm.
talk about the library and microfilm, Frank, I think of Judge Welch.
Oh.
When he retired from the bench, I was in the library a lot in those years, and always Judge Welch was in there struggling through that microfilm doing his research. Great history guy.
In the reference room at that time, they had, I think, 6 or 7 microfilm machines. And I used to go there a lot, as you did.
Yeah.
And there was Judge Walsh.
Yeah, yeah.
And it turned, you know, the result was vignettes of Utica, a book he wrote, filled with great stories, a great reference. And when I'm doing research and I'm looking for something, believe me, 9 times out of 10, I look at Judge Walsh's book, and there it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, when I wrote my book, I thanked Judge Walsh. And what a gentleman. Oh,
Yes, he
and
was.
he really loved local history, too.
Spanish flu. So we're talking, how hard hit was Utica, Frank?
Well, you know, again, the only thing Utica, like all communities, were hard hit. I did find a piece that said, it was written years later, that said, so many Uticans were dying and so fast, the DPW actually, DPW workers were assigned to local cemeteries to help dig graves. So one of these days I'll get the total, but it had to be hundreds who died. And I know there were about 1.5 billion people in the world at that time, and from what I read, 500 million, a third of the world population, not died, but was affected by the virus. And it's interesting, they call it the Spanish flu, but it didn't start in Spain. World War I was raging at the time, and most of those countries, France, Germany, Russia, the newspapers were censored. A reporter could just not go in and report about the flu. Everything they wrote. Spain was neutral during World War I, and reporters, from this country all over, and Spain got hit hard, like all countries did.
So in those years, Frank, Utica had what in terms of hospitals?
Well, in 1918, let's see, you had St. Elizabeth, you had the General Hospital, you had St. Luke's on Weisboro Street, and that would be,
Baxton?
oh no, what am I talking about? Of course, Faxon Hospital and Memorial Hospital on Genesee Street. So you had, and the Spanish flu, again, like the coronavirus, it was a virus, where the cholera was a disease, which there's supposed to be a difference. And the bad thing about both of the others, including the Spanish flu, there was no vaccine. So there are stories that they actually did wear masks. Businesses were closed, churches were closed. Just what we've gone through and we're going through now. So the Spanish flu was really worldwide, as was the 1832 cholera epidemic. So, as I said, history repeats itself. Well,
Yeah. Frank, we've only got a minute or so, but I wanted to get your take on something. The New Forest, speaking of cemeteries, New Forest Cemetery has been going through some tough times. They're trying to make a comeback here, getting a new board and trying some fundraising. But
Right, yeah.
boy, there's a lot of history in that cemetery.
Oh, yeah. Again, I'm not sure, right across the street, Forest Hill Cemetery is
Yeah.
filled with famous men and women. I don't know about New Forest. I do know that right near New Forest Cemetery is a huge statue of Justin Rathbone, who was the founder of the Knights of Pythias.
Yeah, I
He
think
was
it's right up on that hill up there.
Yeah, now I'm not sure. I know he's not buried there,
Uh-huh.
but the huge statue is there. And I don't know if they still do, but years ago, members of the Knights of Pythias from throughout the country and Canada would come to Utica at his anniversary. But on New Forest, I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
Horatio Seymour or Roscoe Conkling.
Right.
But
right.
I don't know how many are buried there, but it's
Yeah.
been there a long time.
Frank, the anniversary of the Oriskany battlefield is coming right up. If you could come back next week, let's talk about that anniversary. Is that all right?
Yep, no
Good.
problem.
All right, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week with Frank Tomano. We'll talk about the Battle of Oriskany. Until then, take care of yourself, everybody. And don't forget, cnyhomepage.com. Lots of good stuff there.